bring in South Carolina Senator and Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott. How are you feeling, and when are you going to get back on the campaign trail?
One of the things I would recommend to every single American, I know it's not possible, by the way, if you ever want to love your country more, run for president. Traveling this country, meeting people has been one of the most fantastic experiences of my entire life. I love America more today than I did on May 22nd. But when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me not now, Tim.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and appearing on Sunday Night in America, Tim Scott announced to the world that he was dropping out of the GOP presidential race. Scott told a dumbfounded Trey Gowdy that he was listening to the voices of the voters and suspending his campaign.
I'm going to hold on and keep working really hard and look forward to another opportunity.
You are suspending your presidential campaign. You have plenty of money. You have the highest approval numbers of any candidate that is running, and you're a couple of states away from coming to a state where you are beloved, and you are suspending your presidential campaign.
Fox host Trey Gowdy couldn't believe what he was hearing and appeared to have a hard time accepting the news. Gowdy seemed taken aback by Scott's announcement. Gowdy pointed out that Scott had money and the highest approval of any of the Republican candidates. This was a stretch on Gowdy's part, though. Tim Scott didn't stand a chance of winning. Scott was one of the remaining GOP jackaloons that took part in last week's presidential debate, but apparently doesn't have what it takes to defeat Donald Trump.
Romans 8:28 is such an important scripture. It says that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I think the message is clear for me right now. I am indeed suspending the campaign, but I am going to remain as committed to making sure that this country chooses the right person by enjoying the journey of just helping people everywhere throughout South Carolina and throughout our country.
Trump, who hasn't bothered participating in the democratic process, is still leading all Republican candidates. A guy facing life in prison for selling out his own country is leading all Republicans. What a pathetic group of jackaloons. As Donald Trump was quoting Adolf Hitler on Veterans Day, the other GOP candidates were trying to separate themselves from the pack, but failed miserably. A con man with 91 felony charges against him is too much competition for the lackluster group of flunkies. These clowns can't even stand up to Donald Trump. What makes anyone think that they would be able to negotiate with world leaders? As each Republican candidate throws in the towel, it becomes more apparent that the Republicans may be uniting behind Donald Trump. With each candidate that drops out, Donald gains confidence. If he can bully his competition into quitting, then he wins. It's an underhanded tactic that he's used for years. This is Donald's MO. He is a manipulating snake that tries to intimidate everyone into doing his will. Unfortunately, Tim Scott and the other GOP candidates don't have the strength of character needed to deflect Donald Trump's attacks. They have all some glaring weakness that Donald Trump uses to discredit them.
I'm trying to process this information, and I'm trying to do it on live television, so forgive me.
Trey Gowdy is putting on an act. He knows deep down that Tim Scott isn't the guy. He shouldn't be shocked by reality. Trey Gowdy is just trying to sensationalize the story for viewers. Gowdy is pretending to be shocked so he can lead his audience along. Tim Scott used an out-of-context Bible verse to explain his decision to drop out of the race. Scott quoted a verse which, paraphrased, says, "God works for the good of those who love him, and for those who have been called according to his purpose." What that verse has to do with Tim Scott admitting defeat or dropping out to help Donald Trump is unclear. The typical GOP voter doesn't fact check, so Tim Scott could basically pick any verse and back up his idiotic point. The real possibility is that the Republicans may be dropping out one at a time to get behind Trump. Remember that they all raised their hands and said that they would support Donald Trump if he was the nominee. Tim Scott is offering nothing but lip service. He didn't even pose a threat to Donald Trump, and no one should be shocked by him pulling out of the race. He just didn't have what it takes, and no amount of Trey Gowdy's bad acting will ever change that. The Republican Party is being led by an overgrown toddler that is facing the rest of his life in timeout. If the GOP cannot stand up to Trump, what makes anyone think that they will stand up to leaders of Russia and Iran? The GOP presidential candidates are irrelevant. They cannot separate themselves from the pack and put forward an effective campaign against Donald Trump, a criminal who may be in jail before the election ever takes place. What a group of pathetic losers. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.